Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here. I have already learned so much from each of you. My presentation will be a little bit different. Consider it kind of like a palate cleanser before our coffee break. So, how many of you in the room, show of hands, know about Airbnb? Excellent. Thanks, Bill. And keep your hands raised. Keep them up if you know exactly what I mean by Airbnb's food program. Still one. Well, I am here to tell you about that today. Simply put, the food program at Airbnb exists to feed our employees. So I'm going to ask you guys to engage in a little bit of a thought experiment for me. My goal today is to describe how we sort of design the food experience so that it is high impact for our eaters and low impact on the environment. So everyone picture for me, you're walking into the office, you're a 22-year-old software engineer, and you're going to start your day with a cup of coffee. You can sip on that coffee in peace because you know that it was roasted in a low-emissions roaster and delivered to us not in 1 or 2 pound bags, but in giant vats that we reuse over and over. If you're an employee in our Singapore office, that coffee was grown, harvested, and roasted by an Airbnb experience host who delivers it to us at our office. But let's say, you need some milk in your coffee. You're only 22 after all. You haven't developed a taste for black coffee. In our Dublin office, we have a program with a local dairy farmer who delivers all of our milk in glass bottles, which we reserve and then he picks up when he comes to drop off the next shipment. But let's say you're not drinking dairy right now. You've fully adopted the alternative milk train. That's great. We have a program for you. We make all of our own almond milk and hazelnut milk in-house. If you want to add some sweetener to your coffee, you can do so. We have honey that we source from beehives that we keep on the roof of our offices. Or if you're in Dublin, you can go to an experience host where they have hives of their own. You can harvest it, learn a little bit about the beekeeping process, and these people supply all of our offices with honey. Excuse me, just the Dublin office. All right, you're a conscious coffee drinker, and you want to know what happens to the grounds after you've enjoyed your cup of coffee. Well, we have a few creative solutions. In Portland, we have a program where we take the coffee grounds, we mix them with the coffee berry husks. It's called cassava. We dehydrate it, grind it into a flour, and then we use that to make all of our breads. In Montreal, we take the coffee grounds, mix them with tea leaves, and give those to a local microbiologist who uses them as nutrients to farm mushrooms that we then repurchase from him to feature in subsequent menus. But let's pretend that, you, the Airbnb employee, you don't like coffee at all. You're more of an orange juice drinker and you're thrilled you can get a fresh squeezed juice any morning. Many of you in the room are probably wondering what place fresh squeezed orange juice has in a sustainable program, especially given that Dublin, Ireland, or Portland, Oregon seldom have days that look like this one in sunny Florida. And so, as a matter of fact, in Portland, we attempted to dispel with the orange juice machine in favor of this sort of armoire apparatus whereby there was a fish tank on top. We would collect the fish excrement and use that as nutrients for a microgreen farm, very much like Aero Farms, that we could then harvest and employees could enjoy. Truth be told, there was mutiny. No one liked the trade of a handful of microgreens for their fresh squeezed orange juice, so we brought it back. But then the onus on us was to determine, okay, there's all of this leftover mass. What do we do with it? How do we not make it just another contribution to our compost bin? In Portland, they take all of the peels and ferment them into a vinegar, which we then mix and turn into a vinaigrette that is featured every day on our salad bar. In Dublin, we do something similar. We take the peels, and that's marmalade that we enjoy every day with breakfast. Breakfast, your first meal of the day at Airbnb, maybe the most important. Remember I told you that we made all of our own almond milk and hazelnut milk? Well, we take all of the leftover almond meal, and that gets turned into breakfast bars, into granola, things that can be featured throughout the day as snacks or breakfast. But say, you're a growing young male or female software engineer, and you maybe want some eggs with your breakfast. I share this just because it sort of gives you guys an idea about the scale of our program. We source all our eggs locally and crack them all by hand. If any of you have ever worked a breakfast line at a major food service establishment, you're familiar with the liquefied egg vats that many people require. Instead of doing that, we want, the variety from having eggs fresh and able to use in many formats. So we crack them all by hand. And I think you're thinking, okay, McKenzie, big deal. I cracked my own egg this morning. We cracked 16,000 eggs every single day. All right, breakfast is over. It's time for you to go back to your desk and, start disrupting and innovating. Meanwhile, the food team is hard at work preparing for the lunch meal. A little bit about our service format. Each and every meal at Airbnb is inspired by a listing on our platform. And so it allows us the opportunity to experiment with a lot of global flavors and, to a certain extent, products. And unlike a lot of our peers in the food service industry for big tech companies, we don't ascribe to the convention that variety is king. In fact, we insist that our employees sit down as you would among family or friends and just enjoy one meal together. We've dispelled the idea that it needs to be bespoke and individualized. And that's great because Airbnb's whole philosophy is around fostering connection and belonging. But for us, from a procurement and also food waste strategy point, it's really efficient. Belonging, that was the slide. All right, so a little bit about our sourcing. I sit in the San Francisco office, it's our headquarters, and so I asked them to dig up some statistics on our procurement. And so for our fresh produce, fruits and veg, meat, we get 93% of all of that sourced within 100 miles. The same is true for Portland, give or take a few numbers. And they also have a program whereby their dry goods are sourced through the Red, which is a food hub. Sorry, this is tickling me. There we go. And it's all delivered by bike. Beeline, in fact, was the first B Corp in the state of Oregon, and we also use them to transport food between our two offices. Not ideal for such a sort of rainy city, but we feel great knowing that that's several fewer vans in circulation. I had a really interesting conversation with someone here around those waxed boxes that most deliveries come in. In Portland, we've decided to do away with those altogether, and all of our produce comes now in reusable boxes that the vendors can pick up on their next delivery. In San Francisco, I think this is one of our cooler partnerships, we have a partnership with Skylark Ranch, and at the beginning of the year, we pledged to purchase every single lamb in their flock. And they deliver it to us in whole animal format. And so we do a butchery program, and it's not uncommon for a chef of ours to stand on a stage like this and do live demos for you, the Airbnb employees. In Portland, we negotiated a deal with our pork vendor to say that rather than getting all of our pork in 1 to 2 pound units, we wanted to get it in higher units. And so in an effort to reduce packaging, we now get all pork in 20-pound units. So some cool things about meat, for sure, but myself and the other food leaders at Airbnb got together this year and read the Eat Lancet report, which is trying to determine what needs to change in our diets if we hope to feed a global population of 10 billion people. And the two conclusions were, notably, waste less food and eat less meat. And so, considering I manage a many multi-million-dollar budget, and a lot of that can be attributed to our spend in meat, I thought, hey, once a week, we can probably get the Airbnb employees to back us up and eat a plant-based diet. And I was very wrong. It was a highly divisive issue. In fact, one person came out of the woodworks and explained that this simply would not work for her because she was on an exclusive animal protein diet, and it had been 3 weeks, and she did not feel like this was inclusive to her. While we polled the employees, and in fact about 66% were very much in favor, we have to make a few concessions, but by and large the program still lives on. We gave them tuna in the salad bar. And as such, we can consume approximately 600,000 pounds less meat every quarter, and that equates to about 250 million pounds of water as a sort of result of that meat not being consumed by us. All right, so it's a meat day. you're bummed, you don't like what's sort of the vegetarian option, so you scope around and see what else is on offer. And you're very suspicious because, in fact, today's soup looks a lot like yesterday's entree, and that kind of gives you the willies. But in fact, it's totally by design. We think that leftovers, much like for the home cooked or for the sort of institutional diner, are really important and in a lot of ways really delicious. It's developing flavor overnight. But not everything can be repurposed. And we learned from Jasmine yesterday that there are lots of companies, I would say Gooder is maybe among the best, who will recapture some of the food that would otherwise be lost if it needs to be eaten same day. So in all of our sites, we partner with usually local market-specific companies who will come collect our food and redistribute it to shelters in the city. So along with your lunch, you probably want a drink. And to me, this is sort of the jewel of the program. We, grew Airbnb pretty tremendously in the last 11 years that we've been a company. And so as such, the bins and bins of single-use cans and bottles grew along with us. And we thought, if we could take all of those and divert them from the landfill, that'd be great. And so instead, we've come up with a plan, and this is something that if any of you ever want to build out a corporate kitchen, do this first. It's really expensive to do it later on, where we have all of our drinks in bulk format. We can make them in-house. We require any vendors who want to work with us to also provide in bulk. It's really neat, too, because we can use this as an opportunity to feature products that would have otherwise probably been tossed. If we have stems from herbs, those can be aromatics in a drink. If we have fruit that's out there as a snack, but it's getting overripe, we can turn that into drinks, too. Uh-oh. You missed lunch. You were maybe in a meeting, maybe you were day trading cryptocurrency, but fear not, we have options for you. I'm gonna maybe breeze through these last few slides in an effort to get you guys to your coffee break on time, but you can take my word for it. We make all of our condiments in-house, we cure our own meats, we make a lot of use of sort of scraps from the main kitchen and turn those into other things. An example that I love is, let's say we featured broccoli on the menu a couple weeks back. You guys all want to eat the broccoli florets, me too, but the stalks are totally viable, they have nutritional value, and we slice those thin, turn them into kimchi, and every day you can enjoy that with your soup. Bulk tea, you guys are starting to get the point, no packaging. We also sort of joke that at Airbnb, the only single wrapped item that you're able to find is a cough drop. And so all of our snacks are also served in bulk format. Airbnb is a very dog-friendly office, much to my personal delight. And so we make dog treats in-house as well. This is Chris Lehane. He's a member of our executive team, and he was hosting some guests from out of town, not all of whom could read the signs. And so they helped themselves to a dog treat. And he, ever being a great host, decided he would do the same. Didn't want to embarrass them. And he reached out to the food team to let us know that they are delicious. Having now eaten several of my own, I can attest, you might break a tooth, but they're really tasty. We use carrot peels and bacon fat, and trust me, if you ever visit, and I invite you all to come, give it a try. And so in conclusion, I just want to share that obviously these examples that I gave came from a variety of sites. Airbnb has 40 across the globe, and each of them are kind of along the same continuum in terms of their commitment to sustainability. None of us are sort of there at the end. There's so much more that we could do. I've learned so many things that I'd like to ask vendors now from what you guys are all working on. And if you have ideas, if you have questions, please do spend some time with me during this coffee break. I'd love to meet more of you. And I'd also just like to celebrate the chefs who really are the ones that have the brain power behind what we're doing. And they work really, really hard. And that gives me the opportunity to share with so much pride about the Airbnb food program. So thank you very much.